Probably there are those among you who are just on the way to their first $1 million, and there are those who have already earned $1 million and are now on the way to a financial goal. And my video today is for those who absolutely don't want to be in the statistics of the middle class, but aim to earn quite a lot of money in their lives and get into the very 1% of the richest people in this world, and provide for themselves for the rest of their lives. I've been through quite different stages of finance in my life, starting with the fact that as a schoolgirl I worked as a waitress in a bar for a couple of $100, and ending with the fact that today I feel quite financially free and can afford not to think about money and how much everything costs. And since I have already had quite a few stages when I increased my income by 2, 3, 5, 10 times, I want to share with you today how I set myself financial goals. This is not only my experience, but also the experience of my successful acquaintances. Some information from the literature that I combine into working thoughts and tools. I'm thinking more fundamentally today, and today literally using the example of my own reflections. I will share this methodology with you. So the main question I ask myself is, what should I become in order to be worth $1 million? I don't pretend to be the truth. I'm not a coach or a psychologist. I'm just interested in sharing what experiences I had in my life, and maybe it will be useful for some of you. Therefore, always think with your own head and make your own independent decisions in life. So what should I become in order to be worth $1 million? Now I will share with you my answers to this question and the qualities that I try to give myself in order to be at this level. So the first quality, I have to be a person who keeps his word. Let's look at this issue from a practical point of view. Why does one advertising agency get contracts worth tens of thousands of dollars and a number for hundreds of thousands of dollars? In fact, this doesn't happen in one day. It's just that some people take on some kind of obligations and fulfill them exactly every day after day, while others fail here and there promise but don't fulfill it. It's a matter of reputation. If you make a commitment, then everyone else is confident that you will fulfill it 100%. And if year after year you make commitments to people and always fulfill them, and you can be sure that at some point the level of trust in you will be so high that people will start offering you gigantic opportunities, gigantic projects, because they will be 100% sure that if you say you're going to do it, then you will do it. And there's many ways that distinguishes those people who create big companies, big projects, and earn huge amounts of money. And it starts with such small things as helping a loved one with an unsigned piece of paper that a missed workout and then unfulfilled obligations of 10 million to the bank or to the partners in order to fulfill. By the way, you don't need to promise to do what you are not ready to do. Therefore, the first quality that I personally develop in myself now is ability to fulfill my obligations to anyone 100%. Quality number 2. I have to be a person who makes a decision in 2 minutes. If we find ourselves in a situation in which we need to make a decision, then as a rule, literally 2 minutes will be enough for us to make this decision. Of course, there is a certain brain trap that will tell us, no, now is not the right time, now we don't have enough information, now we need to consult, discuss, and all these things. But in fact, statistically, it doesn't matter at all what decision we make, because if we take probability theory and mathematics, they will understand that the chance of hitting is about 50-50. And of course, when we make a decision at a moment in time, it seems to us the decision is very, very important. But in fact, we look at the distance of a lifetime and at 1,000 decisions made, we realize that half of them will be correct and half of them will be statistically wrong. And therefore, the simplest thing we can do in order to move faster, develop faster, is to make decisions very quickly. If we don't, we save it for later and say we need some more information. As a result, we just start to drain a huge amount of energy on these rejected decisions, because we start turning it around in our heads. We constantly think about it, we consult with everyone tells us different opinions, different thoughts, and as a result we find ourselves in a situation where it is even more difficult to make a decision. And it also manifests itself in small things. The downside of not making decisions is that they grow like snowballs because you have to make some decisions every day. And every decision that is not made takes away a resource, and because of these, difficulties arise when making the next decision. And as a result, this turns into the fact that the most of your life is spent on the servicing decisions that have not been made. But can a person earning $1 million be like that? The answer is obvious. The third personal quality is that I have to be a person who understands my goals and values very clearly. Let's start with the goals. Why? Because it is a clear understanding of ourselves, our inner world, and our landmarks that determines how quickly and efficiently we will make decisions. This applies to the second point, and if you don't have a clear understanding of where you are going, then how will you make a decision on what to rely on? Because it is this understanding of the point we want to reach that determines which route we should take. So understanding our own goals is very clear and determines what decisions we should and will make. And without this picture of the future, it is simply impossible. The same goes for the value code. In fact, it is an even more important thing. Decisions in various uncomfortable situations are determined by the value code that you have. And thus you make decisions whether you will go down the A path or the B path. And now a very important point, if these values are not clearly formulated in your head, or for example, they're formulated by the question, every time you get into a two-way situation, you will spend a huge amount of time and energy to make a decision. And now the question is, can the person who doubts what decision to make be worth $1 million? No, he can't. The fourth quality is that I have to become a person who knows how to take risks and control them. Many people think that $1 million is just lying in your account, you spend it on entertainment and bright life. But in reality, it looks a little different. Any person who has huge capital carries great risk on his shoulders. It doesn't matter if it's trading or building a business. A person who had a lot of money, he took risks many times, took on his risk and controlled it as best he could. What do I mean by control? A lot of poor people, by the way, often take risks without controlling them. For example, they take out a loan with huge interest rates and don't understand how they will repay it, while a smart person who thinks ahead tries to control his risk. And when he takes on some obligation, some debt, he always thinks of 10 options about how he will repay his debt, what he will do if something goes wrong, and this is a really important quality. The fifth quality is that I have to be a person who is ready to play win-win. What does it mean? When you are at the beginning of a journey, it seems that in order to earn money, you have to take this money from someone. People often think about how they can get a bigger share, how they can make more favorable conditions for themselves, and up to a certain point, it actually works. But when we think about big results, we are probably aware that all the people who have reached this level are very smart, very experienced and very clearly understand themselves in other people. This means that these people will never do anything to their own detriment and will never get involved in projects and companies in which they don't see benefits for themselves. And another thought is that the only way to create something really meaningful is a way to make sure that everyone wins. If, for example, concluding some kind of deal or negotiating, you invest all your strength in order to crush your opponent and knock out the most favorable conditions for yourself. From a distance, this person will not be 100% involved in the processes, will not be interested in the result. That is, by concluding any agreement, all participants in the process must be satisfied at the very beginning. Well, the sixth final quality is that I have to be a positive person who sees only the good in everything. True, but very difficult. I don't know about you, but I tend to worry, get upset, think for a long time about some mistakes, failures and so on, but in my experience of communicating with successful people, I noticed that they are all quite positive. They always try to turn those very disadvantages into potential advantages. And in fact, I assume that this is only possible opinion in order to achieve great results, because these great results are achieved over a long distance. Yeah, there are those lucky people in life who get this lottery ticket and get rich very quickly, but if we still look at the statistics, and the average cat will understand that it's a rule. All the big money is made at a marathon distance, and there can be no problems at such a distance. I've made a lot of mistakes over the last 5 years of trading, and I've often lost money. Did I blame myself for that? Yeah! But there will always be problems, and moreover, will grow off of you, your capital, and your business. These problems will be of a larger nature. And then the question arises, how to go the distance? Not to go astray, just not to go crazy. To be a very positive person, to look at everything with positive attitude. To try to treat everything, even the most negative experience, as an experience gain, as an interesting path that needs to be traversed in order to reach this very final point. So friends, as I said earlier, here I share only my experience, only my opinion, my thoughts, and the thoughts of people close to me. If you like it, if it was useful to you, be sure to put your like or write about in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and also put a bell, and see you soon.